Boys and girls, it's time for our missionary story. And I'm so excited. I'm waiting to find out. Remember, it's about Mary Slessor. And she was taking care of a chief that had gotten sick, and something terrible was about to happen. And I don't know what's going to happen with her. Take it away, Miss Hickman.
So, we've been learning about Mary, and she has been such a great missionary. I'm so thankful for all the things that she has taught us. But last week, we learned that she went to take care of a chief who had been sick, right? And we heard that she was taking care of this sick man, and something terrible was about to happen. So she was traveling to the chief's house, and she had all of her children with her, and all of a sudden, a terrible tornado came through the village. There were canoes flying everywhere. The roofs off their huts were flying everywhere. There was debris and tree branches and dust just flying everywhere. And she gathered her children together and she said, "Listen, children, let's sing praises to God." And did you know, young people, that in scary times, you can sing praises to God, just like Mary Slessor and her family? And that's exactly what they did. God took care of them. Now, through this time, Mary became very ill because it was the cold rain and it got inside of her lungs and she got very sick. But the Lord healed her, and she wanted to tell more people about Jesus. Oh, she wanted to go deeper into the jungles and tell more people about Jesus. And she had heard of these people called the Okayung people. Can you say that together? Okayung. Say it one more time. Okayung people. Yes, and so she went to her chief to the old town that she was living at. Remember, originally she went into Duke Town, then she went into Old Town, and now she wants to go to these Okayung people. And the chief said, No, Mary, that is a terrible idea. They are wicked people. And they believe in all of these terrible evil spirits. And Mary, you cannot go there. The chief said, I cannot protect you if you go there. But she thought, oh, I think the Lord is calling me there. So don't you remember? Nothing. Mary is not afraid of anything. She trusts in the Lord. So sure enough, she loaded her canoe with her 5 precious children. And there was 30 men that helped her row the canoe. So there was 30 men, her 5 children, Mary Slessor, and then also another missionary man there named Mr. Bishop. And so they all loaded up on the canoe and they started sailing down the river into the deep part of an African jungle. And they went into the city called Ekanung. And that is where Mary was going to serve the people there. So these 30 men and children started their long journey down the river. It was raining that day and it was a little bit chilly. And so they rowed and rowed and rowed. Oh, it was such a long trip. Finally, they arrived in the village where they were going to go. So they parked the canoe, but they still had to walk 3 miles. Now it is late, and it was dark, and it was cold, and their clothes were wet. And Mary said, all right, children, here we go. We're going to take our 3-mile journey and find our new home inside this village. And one of the little children said, Ma, can we please just wait till tomorrow? We are cold and we are wet, and the jungle is scary. There's all kinds of animals. And they looked around and they could see the beady little eyes of all different kinds of animals. And they heard, hoo, hoo. They were hearing all these sounds. But do you think Mary was too afraid to go? Of course not. She was going to trust God. So she loaded up her 5 children. Now, the 30 men and Mr. Bishop were going to come a little bit later with all of their things that they were going to have to move into their house. So they started into the woods. They would hear sounds. They would step on a leaf and it would crinkle. Oh, maybe they would get a little bit scared. But Mary would sing some fun songs with them, like Onward, Christian Soldiers. And they would march through that jungle. And finally, they arrived into their new home. Now, this welcoming from this village was different than any other welcome that they had had, because it was very quiet. Anytime Mary went into the other villages, they were so excited to see her, and there was groups of people to welcome her. But in this village, all the people were away at a funeral. And so just a couple slaves were around. And so this welcome was a little bit different, but finally she found a little hut that they had prepared for her. And she went to tuck her children in, and she realized they had all these wet, sticky clothes. And she thought, oh no, my children can't go to sleep. She said, well, I guess we'll have to wait on Mr. Bishop and the 30 men. So they waited and waited. And finally, Mr. Bishop arrived and said, hey, Mary, the 30 men were too scared to come out in the jungle. They're going to bring your stuff tomorrow. And Mary said, no, sir, I don't think so. So Mary put on her boots again and walked 3 miles back to get those 30 men and tell them to man up and bring them their clothes. So sure enough, she went back to them and said, men, we can trust in Jesus. There's nothing in this jungle that's going to hurt us. Jesus is with us. So she grabbed those 30 men and they went back. And finally, the children got their clothes. They had to get through the jungle because the next day was Sunday. And Mary was ready to start telling people about Jesus. So that night, finally, they put on their dry clothes and they rested in their new home in a little hut. And so sure enough, the next morning, they had their first church service in their new village. And the people were so curious, they would come and look. And little by little, day after day, more people started coming back from the funeral. And finally, Mary got to meet her new chief, Chief Edom. Can you say that? Chief Edom. One more time. Chief Edom. You're exactly right. That was the new chief that she got to meet. And she began to learn the culture of these people. And she began to helping these people just like she helped all the other peoples in the different villages that she was in. But these people were different, young children. Did you know that these people were so hard to reach? They believed in all of these evil spirits, and they would spend all of their money that they earned on alcohol. And they would get drunk and do very, very wicked things. And they believed in witchcraft. If somebody died in the village, they believed that some other village cast a spell on them. And then they would go to war with that other village. And it was really not a good thing. So Mary was seeing some challenges. But she still had the most important job. What do you think her job was there? Just like it was her job in Scotland, and just like it was her job in the Old Town, and just like it was her job in Duketown, and now it's her job in this village. Her job was to give the gospel and to tell people that they had this problem of, it's a 3-letter word, and it starts with the letter S. They had a problem of sin. And did you know, just like those people in Africa had this problem of sin, there's some people in America. All people have this problem. The Bible tells us in Romans chapter 3 and verse 23 that all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And that word is sin. We have sin in our heart. And sin must be paid for. And Jesus came and died on the cross to pay for our sin. And he was buried, but he didn't stay buried. On the 3rd day, he rose again. And if we ask Jesus to forgive us of our sin and to cleanse us, and we believe that he died and that he was buried and he was rose again, we can become a Christian. And that's what she was telling these people. All the same message. No matter where she went in Africa, she had the same message. And we have the same message. They spoke a different language. Do you remember how we say good morning? I think it is mokum ikum do. So maybe her message, it sounded a little different coming out of her mouth, but it was the same story. It was the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so that was Mary's job, but it was a little more difficult than she had ever had. But one day, the Lord sent her a very special friend, Mahami. That was her name. What was her name? Mahami. Yes, that's very good. That kind of reminds me of, Jenna has a favorite vegetable called hominy. And every time I see that word, that's what I think of. So, Mahami. Can you say that? Mahami. Very good. And Mahami and Mary had a secret code. Do you ever have secret languages with maybe your close friends or your family? You have a little secret language. Sometimes in my class, I would give a secret language. I wouldn't have to say anything, but I could tell them what I meant with my eyeballs if I'd go like this. Do you think that's the secret code for I am happy or I am not happy? That would mean I am not happy. And I didn't have to say one word, but they knew what that meant. Or if I do this, do you think that means I'm happy or not happy? Of course that means I'm happy. So we have all different kinds of secret codes. Well, Mary had a secret code with Mahami. This is what they would do. Mahami would be sitting at her house, and if there was a problem in the village, she would send her messenger with an empty medicine bottle. And when Mary would receive that empty medicine bottle, she would know, oh no, there's a problem. And she would go running to the other village, and she would help fix this problem. So one day she received an empty medicine bottle with a message saying that the chief in the next village over was very sick. Now she knew immediately she was going to have to go. But again, the people said, no, Mary, you really cannot go into this village. They are going to kill you. They do not like outsiders coming in. You cannot go. But Mary knew that if this chief died, in their culture, hundreds of other slaves would die too. So Mary said, oh, I know it's dangerous, but I really need to go see if I can help this chief. Because if this chief dies, then hundreds of other slaves die. And I don't want that to happen. But Mary did know it was very dangerous, and she thought, oh no, if I die, who's going to take care of my children? So she thought, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into my hut and pray and ask the Lord what he wants me to do. And that's exactly what she did. She went into her hut and prayed and asked what the Lord would have her to do. And did you know sometimes throughout our day, we get to a point where we don't know what to do? And did you know Miss Hickman has gotten to points in her life where I don't know what to do. There's big decisions to make and I don't know the right choice. Did you know that we can go and talk to God and he will help us know what to do? The Bible says that thy word, talking about the Bible, is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. That's what the Bible says. So did you know Mary went and talked to God? And I'm sure she read her Bible and she knew that going to the village was the right idea. So again, it was a terrible storm and she starts trudging through the jungle and finally arrives at the chief's home. And she's able to give the chief some medicine that makes him better. And that day, the chief was healed. And he was made better. And so because the chief lived, hundreds of other slaves' lives were saved. So Mary did such a great job. And we were so thankful that they were so thankful that she followed the Lord into this dangerous place. And children, did you know that when you follow the Lord, great things will happen? There is nothing better than serving the Lord. I promise, if you decide to follow Jesus, you will live the most happy, fulfilled life. Now, is there scary times? Oh, yes. Is there hard times? Oh, yes. But it is such a rewarding life following God. And I want to challenge you. Just like Mary followed the Lord into these dark, scary places, I want you to know that you can follow the Lord wherever he leads you. And he has a special plan just for you. And if you are a Christian, you are his child, and he has a job for you to do. And it's only something special that you can do. He hasn't asked others to do it. He has a special job just for you. And I promise if you follow that plan for your life, you will be such a happy, happy Christian. So that is my challenge to you. So now listen, all of these good things were happening. Mary had saved hundreds of slaves. She had saved this chief. She'd made a new friend, Mahami, and things were going really well. They were going so well that the village said, hey, we need to build you a nicer house. So they built Mary, they got her out of this little hut, and her and her 5 children were able to live in a bigger house. And she was writing her friends back home in Scotland, and she said, oh, I can't wait to tell you what the Lord is doing. Hundreds were saved last week because the chief was able to be healed, and I was able to explain to the people that they also have this problem of sin. Very good, they have sin, and I was able to give them the gospel. Very good. So she was so excited, and she said, I have this beautiful home. There is just one thing missing. I have no windows and no door. Oh, can you imagine living in a house without any windows or doors? So she said, I just would like to help you. Please help me pray that somehow I can get windows and doors. Well, did you know that all of a sudden one day she was cleaning her little house and she heard an accent coming through the jungle that she recognized. It was a Scottish accent. And sure enough, this man named Charles Ovens came all the way from Scotland. He was a builder. And he came all the way from Scotland to help Mary put in windows and doors. And when he arrived, he looked at the house and he said, "Oh, Mary, you have so many children living with you, and you are helping so many people, and so many sick people come to your house. We need to build you a bigger house." So Mr. Ovens stayed and built Mary even a bigger house. And this house had windows and doors. Oh, she was so excited about all that was going on. And she was so thankful for Mr. Ovens. And did you know that when we follow the Lord will supply all of our needs? Just like Mary had a need for windows and doors, she prayed about it. And did you know the Lord sent somebody all the way from another country to come fill that need? And did you know that when we have needs in our life, we can pray and ask the Lord to fulfill them? And He can do miraculous things. He can do miracles to supply those needs, just like He did for Miss Mary. Now, shortly after that time, Miss Mary became very, very ill. She became so sick that she had to leave the country of Africa. So she loaded up on a boat and she had to sail home to Scotland. Can everybody wave at Miss Mary? Bye, Mary. She had to head home. Next week, we're going to find out if Mary returns to Africa. So don't you miss it. Okay, thank you for being with us today. I loved being with you. I loved talking about Mary and the gospel of Jesus Christ. I will see you next week.